This Tuesday, August 6, 2019, meeting of the Oldsmar City Council to order. The first two items on the agenda is the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by our City Attorney, Mr. Tom Trask.
Heavenly Father, we come humbly before you in a time where 3 mass shootings occurred in the last few weeks. The deaths and injuries of those who were caught in the wake of gunfire in Gilroy, California, El Paso, Texas, and Dayton, Ohio, burden our hearts. We pray that you will comfort the families of those who were injured and welcome those who have died into your heavenly kingdom. We are hopeful that your grace and love will be with those who have suffered and with those present here today who share in their pain and loss. This we pray.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you. Before we get started, I do feel the need to make a comment. There's a rumor going around that I'm trying to improve my looks by wearing makeup. That actually is not true. My daughter was trying to cover up the fact that I have a black eye, a banged up forehead, and no, I did not get in a fight. No, Amber did not hit me. As I told the chamber earlier today, the truth of the matter is, I shared with our city manager the long list of council priorities, and he hit me. No, I took a header, but what are you going to do? All right, the next thing on the agenda is the citizens' open forum. I'm going to start on this side of the room. Anybody have anything they'd like to say? I see we're in trouble. Let me first say this. You have 5 minutes. There is only one item that's a public hearing. It's item number 12 on the agenda. We ask that you hold your comments to that time. Other than that, it is open. And Amanda, please take the podium.
Hello, my name is Amanda, 135 Eastlake Club Drive, Oldsmar, Florida, 34677. And I'm the Poet Laureate of Oldsmar, and I am here to read the poetry from our beloved council members, as well as bring a poem of my own, as well as a challenge for the next city council meeting on the first meeting in September.
Are you going to share what the challenge was last time?
Yes, thank you. The challenge last time was to write a poem based on the nature that you see around you in Oldsmar. So this was a celebration of Oldsmar and the nature that we find around it. So I have 3 poems here that I would like to read.
I have one also for you when you're done.
Wonderful, okay. We have 4 poems. Did you bring a poem? Not to put you on the spot or anything. I'm sorry. No pressure. There's never any pressure.
I did the
You're the
superhero
only one.
and I was the only one that did the superhero one. So
We are way
All
late
right,
to
so
the
we're
game.
playing catch up. We were shamed after that. Amanda, she keeps us in shape up there.
I will be prepared for the next.
I wanted to make sure before you read them that everyone knew that this is part of what you do in your role and bring a little culture. And I didn't want the audience or people at home to think that any of us started to believe we're actually poets. Because once you read it, they'll understand why we're not. But go ahead. I'm just lowering the bar.
Oh, I like to say that if you write a poem, then you're a poet.
Okay, well, I like that. There you go.
This first poem is called Oldsmar Place by Councilmember Dan Saraki. Oldsmar Place, just a little piece of paradise. The large, old chinaberry tree sheds lots of shade in the summertime. Several generations of red cardinals visit the sunflower seed bird feeders every day. The blue jays make sure they get their fair share and always put up a fight. The large blackbirds come flocking in fast and take charge. They like to eat and run. The titmouse flies in quickly, takes one sunflower seed, then exits for safety. Possums, raccoons, brown rabbits, and turtles will stop by and visit, but don't stay long. The hawk family of 4 stops over every day. They are looking for a fat white dove, snake, or passing squirrel for a snack. During July and August, one will fall asleep to the sound of frogs. The small alligator hides in the marsh. His grunts can be heard at nighttime. The beautiful circle of life abounds. Oldsmar Place, just a little piece of paradise.
Very nice. Can hardly wait to hear mine.
And next we have Rain by Councilmember Gannon. Each afternoon the murky clouds stir, to greet a rude summer visitor. Roads drown swiftly in summer's creek, whilst she melts away the dog day heat. My city transforms to a muddy soup, the drains craving a briny meal. Tomorrow repeats a seasonal loop. By tranquil droplets our chaos revealed.
Very good.
I don't know if I want to go last.
Well, don't worry. Don't worry, Gabby, I'm about to save you.
This one is Nature All Around by our very own mayor. As I walk around our town, I am reminded of how lucky we are. The trails, the preserve, the fresh air off the bay as the night water shines from the stars. A city with no nature is like a person with no soul. The natural beauty can lift your spirits and warm you when you're cold. With the colors bright and the fresh smells thrive, it makes you grateful to have this day and grateful to be alive. As the years pass and the season bound, I thank God for the blessing that nature is all around. You have yours?
Sound a little like a nursery rhyme.
This one's called Nick River Road. It was the end of the road, a pond on either side, seeking desperately through the grasses, but no animals were in sight. Nick Glacier in the distance, slowly melting into glacial streams, quenching thirst for all of the wildlife, except my thirst for the wildlife I couldn't see. It was the end of the road, a pond on either side, this time a giant bull moose standing on the right. Mouth full of reeds, a pond salad delicacy of sorts. It was the end of the road. This is Alaska, true north.
Very nice.
That's right.
Poetry snaps. Well, now I was, to prepare for the theme and the challenge for next time, I did a little research on August, and I found out that August is International Peace Month, and I feel that after this past week, I feel like the world could use a little more peace. So the theme for this one is peace, and I found a little excerpt about International Peace Month. International Peace Month was founded on August 16th, 1926, at the Democratic Peace Conference in Germany. In commemoration of the month and in memory of the First World War, delegates voted to encamp in tents upon the battlefields of France through August 29th in order to pursue an intensive study of international peace work. After the events of this past weekend, I believe the world could use just a little more peace. So my poem is called Just a Piece. Just a piece of peace might be all we need. A sliver of a silver lining could shine just enough light, despite a twilight horizon. A fragmented fraction of action is all we need to embrace a place of love. And the challenge for City Council is to write a poem on the theme of peace.
Very good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Amanda.
All right, do we have anybody else on this side of the room? Tony?
I had absolutely, the Jerry Cousin Upper Tampa Bay Chamber Conference, I had nothing to say except, loved your poem, but you forgot something.
What I forget?
Well, I just came up with a poem on the spot. Our place, Oldsmar Place. Every night when my head hits the pillow, I think of our mascot, the old armadillo.
There you go. Like I said, you could say anything you'd like when you come up.
Mayor,
Tony,
I think our city manager had a poem.
Did you have
He
a
shared
poem?
with me earlier.
Absolutely not.
Sure?
I totally forget. I don't know what you were talking about.
Oh,
Next month?
Comments.
that's all right. We'll put them on the agenda for next month. Tony? Come on up.
Want me to say that after these?
Yeah, that was funny.
Stupid.
Tony Gross, 711 Sandleaf Avenue. Good evening, Mayor Seidel and council members. I wanted to thank each one of you, and especially recognizing Linda Norris in her leadership and kind of taking the lead with the Warrior Games 2019. So I wanted to bring a couple pictures up today. And if you remember this one that was taken, I think in May, and it was Colonel Harbaugh standing right here, telling us about the Warrior Games. And I think if I had to summarize what the Warrior Games meant to me and what they looked like, I think it would be this soldier, this warrior with no legs and no arms, and yet he competed in the swim competition at the Long Center here in Pinellas County. I'll pass these around. And as I said, I do want to thank each of you, and especially Linda Norris, for the generous donation to build the ramp at the opening and closing ceremonies at Amalie Arena. And once again, we do appreciate the fact that Oldsmar, its leadership, loves veterans and families of the fallen. Thank you so much. I'm going to pass these around.
Thank you for sharing those with us. Let's see, anyone on this side of the room? Becky. Please don't forget to state your name and address and city, please. Because we don't know where you live. On State Street, Oldsmar, Florida.
Could have moved again. Becky Afonso, 174B State Street East, Oldsmar, downtown Oldsmar, 34677. Just want to take a moment on behalf of the Friends of the Oldsmar Library to thank staff for the January 27th Summer Reading Program finale, which was a superhero party. Unfortunately, I missed it, but I'm under the impression, after hearing numerous reports and seeing several postings, that it was the best attended event that the library has had with regards to those programs. So, Counsel, please, you got a tremendous director in Susan and a children's library director in Anthony, and can't thank them enough. So, and of course, to all the volunteers from the Friends, not me, but them, for making that a success.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. 300 kids, huh? That's terrific.
Wow, that's a lot.
Do we have anyone else on this side of the room? I'm gonna part from the schedule a little bit, the agenda, and ask Deputy Kakalo to come up.
The ladder.
Deputy Kakalo, Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. I am here to introduce our new sergeant, Sergeant Bingham.
Sergeant, welcome.
Mayor, Council, thank you. As Deputy Cackle stated, my name is Sergeant Brian Bingham with the Sheriff's Office. I've been there 21 years. This is day 11 in the unit. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to work with all of you. If there's anything that Deputy Cackle or myself can do, we're a phone call away.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Excellent. Well, we welcome you to the city. It's the second time, I bet, in the short time that you've been here, and it wasn't on the side of the road or anything like that.
That's between you and I.
Man, it's just getting down south and I don't want to get mad.
Yeah.
But we want to welcome you. I'll tell you a comment that I heard from some of the deputies, that you coming here and taking over this group means that anybody who had any desire of leaving just left the window, just went out the window, because they feel that strongly about you. So
That means a lot.
we feel very lucky to have you, and look forward to you being here for a long time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Forward to it.
You.
Now,
Thank you.
Welcome.
one more time. Hurry up, hurry up.
I'm so excited.
Well, you only used 2 minutes, so you have a little time left.
Many of you know that December the 14th, something called Wreaths Across America is celebrated or observed at our national cemeteries. And so I wanted to share with you information about, if you do, consider purchasing a wreath this year to put on a fallen soldier's or a veteran's headstone somewhere at one of our national cemeteries. I wish that you would consider placing it through Gold Star Awareness. Here's information about it. Go on Wreaths Across America, Gold Star Awareness.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is that it? Anybody? Jerry, you want to go again? No, we're good. All right, the next item on the agenda is the community minute. I'm going to call on our city clerk, Ann Nixon.
Yes, so
The DOT, Florida Department of Transportation, is hosting a virtual public hearing for proposed median changes that will be on Tampa Road. The median openings at the following locations will either be closed or modified: Sunflower Drive, Bay Arbor Boulevard, Emerald Bay Drive, and Bayview Boulevard North. The public hearing is August 7th, that's tomorrow, from 6 to 7 p.m. And you can either register for a live webinar or attend in person at the Oldsmar Public Library. The Oldsmar Public Library presentation will start promptly at 6:15. And for further information to register for the live webinar, you can either contact myself, anixon@myoldsmar.com, or you can also find out more information at myoldsmar.com. Back to school, free cycle exchange. Donations of clothing, accessories, shoes, school supplies, toys for babies through teens. You can drop off what you have at the library, or if you need something, you can come by the library. The free cycle event will be from 10 to 2 on Friday, this Friday, August 9th, and on Saturday, August 10th, same times, 10 to 2. So you can drop off anytime before then, or if you have something in need, please go by the library. New school year is next week. Pinellas County schools start Wednesday, August 14th. Some of us are cheering, and maybe others aren't. But watch for students walking, biking, or waiting for the school bus, and remember to add a few moments to your commute time. That's all I have.
Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is approval of addition of new agenda items. New items are items 6, 7, 8, 9, 15, 16, and 18, which sounds like a whole lot compared to when we were down to one new item. However, I will say this, staff deserves a pass because we had some moving of the chairs kind of going around with folks leaving some of our citizens boards, so we want to fill those fast and not delay them. That's why we have so many on there. Is there anybody who wishes to pull any of the new agenda items for discussion? No. Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the new agenda items.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Sensing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes. The next item on the agenda is the awards and recognition. And I call on our city manager to present the Homer Bronson Ward Schreckengosch Award for the second quarter of 2019. It only took me 10 years to learn how to say that properly. Schreckengosch.
Wes, do we have that video clip? Announcing it? We do.
Go.
The Homer Bronson Ward Schreckengosch Award was instituted in 1991, and what it was for, it was for one of our workers here in the city that was chosen by their peers to win the Ward Schreckengosch Homer Bronson Award. And what the award is, it serves two purposes. One, to recognize an outstanding worker here that works for the city of Oldsmar. And the other, what it serves is that Ward Schreckengosch and Homer Bronson were both council members here in the city of Oldsmar. Ward Schreckengosch served as mayor for 16 years. His last year on the council serving was 1970. I had the privilege of serving with him on his last year. And Homer Bronson served 11 years as a council member and 1 year as a mayor. And this serves two purposes: to honor Ward Schreckengosch and Homer Bronson, and to honor one of the incredible workers we have in the city of Oldsmar.
Thank you, Mr. B. The award winner for the second quarter of 2019 is Mike Jaser. Michael?
How are you?
I would probably should have given that to your wife, but okay.
She's mad at me, so.
Well, welcome to my club. So as Mr. B suggested, this is kind of the employees award where we try and recognize things that are done aren't necessarily totally out of the ordinary, but somebody that gets recognized by his peers as being somebody you really want on your team and somebody good to work with. I'm going to read you the nomination form itself, but it's nowhere enough to describe what Michael means to us. The nomination was by one of the receptionists, actually, and if I can see it, it says, Mike is the most positive person I've ever met. He answers every call or email, and none of them are ever anything but complaints, meaning the ones we send to him. With a quick, we will get right on the problem, and I will give the resident a call. Once I send him an email, I know the problem has been handled. He is enthusiastic, respectful, and always a gentleman. Now, maybe some of you might think that wouldn't be much more than what he does normally, but if you were with us for a couple of days and you see the number of complaints we get, that can be considered Herculean in some circles. And since he's a maintenance supervisor for streets and stormwater, everything environmentally that resembles a puddle or whatever generally gets patched through to him. Also, he's been with us for 17 plus years. He's been here almost as long as I have, and he has also won the City Manager Impact Award and been nominated for it another time. So once again, you've heard me probably blather on about how many wonderful people we have that just seem to really get it. But Michael is somebody that I've long had a great deal of respect for how he approaches what he does. And I think this is great recognition for him. And before I let him say something, I want to tell you a quick story, and this involves Mr. Trask's office. I never forgot this. When my former position, I was the representative for the city at any litigation. In spite of what all you guys might believe, we do get sued once in a while, and occasionally it goes to trial. Long ago, far away, you remember this. I know you do. We've gotten expert representation from Mr. Trask's firm for a long time. This situation was no different. But in the course of the trial, let me just say, because I was there observing, that we had a row of witnesses that were called to the stand, and almost every one of them outranked him in terms of the pecking order for the org chart. And we were struggling in cross-examination to describe the specifics of a maintenance log. And mostly because he was the lowest paid of the people that were called on the witness stand, we had gone through 3 or 4 employees that really were struggling to clearly testify what this maintenance log meant, and it was vital to the case. And I can tell you, because I remember it vividly, it was like he was a baseball player, and here comes a fastball down the middle. He got up there, and he nailed it, and the case was over. Now, Mr. Trask's firm, fabulous representation, but his testimony saved us a boatload of money, and in my opinion, got us a judgment in a case that was very, very important to us. Never said a word to anybody about it. He never said a word to anybody about it. That's the kind of guy we have, and you've heard me talk about the Charlies, the Mikes, the Tim Jacobsons. We got a lot of those guys. And I said to you, I'll say the same thing about him that I said about Charlie. I said, there's a certain bunch of guys in this organization that I would call right away if I was in a fight. There's another one. Not because he's built, just because those are the kind of guys you want on your side. And if you do business with him, or if you see him in public, he gets in trouble sometimes for how nice he is to other departments. Another department goes to him, hey, can you handle this? No problem, take care of it. I mean, that's what we have. And so whether this is really a magnificent achievement, which he's had many, he got the City Manager's Impact Award for, or not, this is a great representation about what he really is about. And I feel good about having him get this award, because at least anytime we can recognize people for doing exceptional customer service, especially in his case, and I love the way he treats his guys. I'm very, very happy that he is where he is and that he's on our team. We appreciate it. Michael?
Excellent.
Thank you. How do I follow that up? Well, I just want to thank Mimi, and I'm at a loss for words now,
That's okay.
for nominating me. And, you know, it's an honor to win this. And thank you, and thank Nan and Daniel for their support, and Counsel,
And you're a resident too, right?
and my resident, and
You are, he lives here.
live here.
He works here, he lives here.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on the agenda is Community Redevelopment Agency. We have no items tonight. Next will be the consent docket, which will be announced by our city clerk, Ann Nixon.
Item Item number 2, approve minutes of July 16th, 2019 City Council meeting. And item number 3, accept resignation of Dave Tilkey from the Veterans Advisory Board.
Thank you. I'd like to pull item 3. Does anyone want to discuss item 2? I certainly hope so. Hope not. The chair will entertain a motion to approve item number 2.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying all.
All.
All opposed signify by saying aye.
I see what you're doing there. You're trying to trip us up.
Next item on the agenda is item number 3. I did hit my head pretty hard.
Concussion.
Gabby asked me earlier, did you get your head checked out? I said, no, Dad, I'm okay. Item number 3 is accept the resignation of Dave Tilkey from the Veteran Advisory Board. And I just wanted to pull that and take a moment to say thank you to him for all of his years of service. He is one of those citizens that's made an impact here in Oldsmar. He's not going anywhere, I don't think. But he just decided that it was time to let some other folks serve on that board. And we would be remiss not to stop and just say thank you. He does so much more in the community besides that board. The Honor Our Heroes Run, I could probably name quite a few different things, but I just wanted to give you the recognition you deserve, sir. Give me a round of applause.
Thank you, Dave.
All right, the chair will entertain a motion to accept item number 3.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Next item on the agenda, City of Oldsmar. Item number 4, we're going to skip and reschedule. Unfortunately, Joe Ring from Empower Adventure was unable to be here tonight. There was a last-minute conflict, so he's asked to be rescheduled, so we're going to do that. Item number 5, Mr. Buckman. Approve the appointment of Jared Buckman as alternate member of the Planning Board. Sir, would you please come on? How are you tonight?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm good.
I always got to lean down into this thing.
So you may know this, but we typically will have, when there's a new appointment, have them come up just so the council has an opportunity to meet you. I think everyone probably already knows you, but ask you any questions. And then there's the traditional dance. But does anyone have any questions first?
I don't dance.
Well, that's good. Then you have the singing part tonight.
Yes, then it's song by default.
Megan has to sing. Please.
Oh, yeah, right?
Megan, yeah. Oh, I'd love to hear Megan sing.
Anyhow, tell us just a little bit about you so the citizens get to learn.
So moved to Oldsmar back in 2014, was living in a rental from my aunt and uncle, if you will. Decided to make it our home, bought our home in 2016 here. Served on my HOA up at Jacksonville and felt like I wanted to give back to the community here and wanted to be a part of it. So.
Excellent. Well, we appreciate your service. I know that you're active in the community. I think we all have seen you out at events before, so we appreciate your service.
Thank you.
So at this time, the chair will entertain a motion to approve.
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
I love that he said aye.
Item number 6. Item number 6 is approved moving Dave Enos from alternate member to regular member of the Board of Adjustments. Now, he is not here tonight. I don't know if he spoke to any of you. He did call me. He has been on the board, as you know, so he's been around a little bit. I think he's an excellent choice. He's done a good job. Wouldn't you agree?
Excellent attendance.
I agree.
I always look over at Kathy or Ann in Park because they're always at those meetings all the time. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved?
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. The next item on the agenda is approve appointment of Steve Gaber. Graber. As alternate member of the Board of Adjustments. Sir, would you please come up? Now, I did speak with Steve beforehand, and he assured me that he could dance.
I think we're done then, right? Favor.
All right. Tell us a little about yourself, sir.
My wife and I and our two kids, they're 3 and 1. We decided to raise them here in Oldsmar. So I grew up in a family that was very active in local government. And since we're raising them here, I wanted to be a part of what's going on. So Kathy and Ann, who are both very helpful in getting me the applications and telling me to hurry up and fill them out and let me know when spots opened up. So jumped at the chance when this one did.
Do you
Well,
practice
excellent.
law with a firm, or do you practice solo?
I'm in-house counsel for First American.
Oh, cool.
So kind of a firm, kind of giant corporation stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very-
Excellent.
Mayor, I have a
Sorry, I had
question.
to do the lyrics.
Since you're from Western New York, West Seneca, are you still a Bills fan?
Yeah, huge Bills fan.
That's what I thought.
All right, disappointment is over.
Sorry. It's Bills, and then I moved to Jacksonville in '95 before we came down here, of course, which we much preferred down here. However, I'm one of the very few Bills and Jacksonville Jaguars fans. So it's a life of misery, but it's okay. We'll pull through.
Sir, would you be capable of playing street hockey by chance?
Yeah, I mean, I can play if you need me
We
to.
need old guys. You may not be old enough, but
You just won his vote. I will tell you that. All right. Well, listen, sir, we appreciate your service. I've served on this board before years ago, and I will tell you that it can be a tough board sometime, but it's an important one. It's one that has, quite frankly, its own set of authorities, passes counsel, which is very unusual. So if there's no other questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes.
Welcome.
Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
thank you.
Boy, this next one's trouble.
Suspect.
Item number 8 on the agenda, approve appointment of Matt Clark as alternate member of the Code Enforcement Board. Mr. Clark, would you please come up here, sir?
Isn't this ironic?
I would ask you to sing or dance, but I'm afraid you would. Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you'd like to serve on the board.
Well, I actually applied for the, which one was it? The one Jared just got on. But there was this space came up available as well. And seeing as I'm been on the other end of the stick, I think it's time that I go on the other end. I think it's good.
So you've been before the
Oh, yeah.
Code Enforcement Board.
Oh yeah, I've got
Perhaps have
plenty
more
of knowledge.
knowledge of the
That's how I got
code
to know
than
Tom
any other.
quite intimately.
I think that's a great thing. If I had my way, we would appoint only people who've actually had any dealings with our different boards, so they could
Point.
speak from firsthand experience, good, bad, or indifferent. But does anyone have any questions?
I don't have questions, but I have comments, so I need to wait for that.
No, go right ahead.
Okay.
Would you rather do that under, well, I'll entertain a motion and then we'll do it under discussion if you'd
Okay.
like. All right? I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes. This is a very important board. This is one of our most important boards because the people on this board sit in judgment of us, of citizens. I've lived in this town for 20 years and have not had one code violation. You have a history of code violations. You have a history of litigation. You have a history of, I mean, it's all public knowledge. It's in the minutes with code enforcement. It's in the minutes with, and this isn't an easy thing for me to do. I think anybody that wants to volunteer, I think it's awesome that people want to volunteer. But this is an important board, and your history shows that you don't seem to have a respect for the rules. Seems that you make them up as you go.
I wouldn't agree with that, Linda.
Well, $5,000 in fines, knocked down to $500.
Yeah, at this point, I'd ask that you
Okay.
direct the comments to us.
Okay, $5,000 in fines, and using taxpayer dollars to take that to court, and taxpayer dollars having to defend that suit, and it.
Suit? Did we go to court?
Appeal. You went to court. You went to appeals
Right.
court. Yes. Then come before council to ask us, I was on the council at the time, for us to forgive that $5,000, and it was a 5-0 vote against you. Went to code enforcement, and they did lower it to the 500, which you then appealed, and then didn't do whatever the judge did, asked for, I guess. I'm not sure about the details, but I haven't read the court transcripts, but then it was dismissed. But all that cost the city money. And I am happy to see that you did finally pay the fines last year. That was good. And then after that, you continue to plant trees in the right-of-way without a permit. You have a boat sitting in your front yard. That's a code violation right there.
Right.
Oh, well, I drove by. It's in your front yard.
I'm not,
Can you finish up your comments so others
Yes,
can
so
comment?
I oppose this.
Okay.
I oppose this appointment. I believe that it is our duty. We were elected by the citizens of Oldsmar to, the boards serve at the pleasure of the council.
Right.
The council serves at the pleasure of the citizens. They're our boss. I think that it would be dereliction of our duty to put someone on a board that has the history such as this Matt Clark has.
Okay.
And I would ask the city to seek other candidates. Since we have a full working board, it's an alternate position, so we're not in any pressing time. That's okay, you got the whole.
Can you wrap
Bronson
up, please?
Award.
I wanna move on.
Wrapping it up, yes,
Okay.
Eric, I am, Mayor, I'm wrapping it up. I'm asking that we seek other applicants. Since it's not a pressing issue, we have time. There's no urgency, so I am not happy to oppose this, but I do oppose this.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
Yes, Mayor. Matt, I'd like to just say a couple things. Over the last year and a half, I've seen a major improvement in your attitude towards our city. Sometimes I'll see you out and you say positive things about how you want to see our city improve. I think that as a volunteer for a board, it's very important that you get involved in the city to continue focusing on helping improve our city. I don't have a problem with you being an alternate member at all. I think that you have made clearly many mistakes. But moving forward, I think you can make a difference and show others how to improve. So, Mayor, I'm for him.
Thank you.
thank you, Danny.
Any other comments?
No, I will say, I mean, Linda, I agree to an extent of, when I saw it, I think we kind of laughed a little when you walked up, that there is a little bit of, oh, this is an interesting choice for code enforcement. I was going to ask, was this your first board that you wanted to be on? And I'm glad that Eric kind of asked that and you answered that. But I'm glad to see that the fines were paid, and I understand too, sometimes we can be tough, not just with you, but with other citizens. So I think it's good that you have that perspective also, that some of our other citizens that have dealt with our codes or code enforcement have had. And I do think that people, deserve an opportunity to participate. I'm glad that you want to volunteer. Obviously, you wanted to run for council as well. So you're interested in the community, and I think joining a board is a great way to do that as well. So, I'm okay with an alternate member. And hopefully, you'll enjoy it and you'll care about the codes and also provide valuable feedback, to our council of where you see, issues and things too as well. So,
Thank you, Gaber.
Thank you.
I echo the sentiments of Councilmember McGee. I feel like everybody deserves a chance. I think Councilmember Norris is right that we all know the relevant history. But in the same vein, that does give you more knowledge about the code enforcement process than perhaps anybody else.
I learned a lot.
And perhaps you could even learn more by being on the board.
That's what I was sort of hoping, is to learn more about it.
I do think it's important that as a member of any board in the city that you act as an ambassador for the city. And I've seen your participation in Citizens Academy. I've seen your participation in our recent election. I've seen your participation just at local events. And I think that all past aside, I think going forward in the future, you can continue to show that you can be an example of an ambassador for the city of Oldsmar. I will expect you to show the same.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. My comments on it are, first off, let me say this, and maybe it's my nature. Look, sometimes our boards don't get it right, and sometimes we have to challenge them. That is the process. We get challenged up here all the time, quite honestly. And so I personally like seeing someone who's willing to do a little bit of challenging and makes you ask the question, do we have all these codes right? And so I don't accept that completely that as a negative. I know that Mr. Clark's, I'll give you a takeaway from code enforcement. From being at a code enforcement meeting where there was a couple who built their stairs wrong or their ramp wrong at their home in Gull Air, just by sitting there. He and his wife put together a team and went out and rebuilt it for them so that it was up to code, and just did it as volunteers. I mean, that speaks to his character, in my opinion. I could think of numerous events that the Clarks have been involved in, putting on a appreciation dinner for our workers and our first responders after the hurricane, out clearing roads after the hurricane. So when you talk about character, I cannot think of anybody who has demonstrated that more. His involvement in the city and, got involved in you all running against each other in an election and went involved and, all in, went to the academy and all that. And, to me, that's part of paying your dues, And so, personally,
I think I've done my time.
What's that?
I think I've done my time.
Well, we'll see about that. But no, I don't think there's anything wrong with anybody questioning, quite honestly. But I just have a different view of it. Sure. And I think it's really important. I think there's a compassion that you learn from doing and being on the other end. Sure. Also, the mistakes you might have made, right?
Sure. The city of Dunedin could tell us a lot about code enforcement right about now.
Sure, well, that's exactly right. I mean, we all learn, but I mean, violating a code, not realizing you're violating a code and learning the hard way, where somebody walks in and you're now part of that board and you can look at them and go, oof. You're preaching the choir, but I've been there before, so there's a difference, in any event. So I have a motion and a second. Sensing there's no further discussion, we're going to do a roll call vote.
Councilmember Norris?
No.
Councilmember Sarkey?
Yes.
Vice Mayor McKee?
Yes.
Councilmember Gannon?
Yes.
Mayor Seidel?
Yes.
Appointment of Matt Clark as alternate member of the Code Enforcement Board is approved with 4 votes for and 1 against, Norris dissenting.
Well, congratulations, sir.
Thank you, people.
The next item on the agenda is the presentation of the Purple Heart Day Proclamation. As you know, we've been having different council members participate in presenting the proclamations, and I have asked Councilmember Saraki. I gave him that honor tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. I think that this is my first proclamation ever.
What? Ever?
I think so. I'd never done one before. So
On, Doug.
from
That old mayor, he was so selfish.
so I'm so excited.
I call fake news.
You're out of order, sir.
From the office of the mayor of Oldsmar, Florida, the Purple Heart Proclamation, whereas on August 7th, 1782, then Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army, George Washington, established the Badge of Military Merit, which was awarded to only 3 Revolutionary War soldiers for brave military service. And whereas on February 22nd, 1932, the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth, President Hoover revived the Badge of Military Merit as the Purple Heart. And whereas the Purple Heart is specifically a combat decoration and is awarded to members of the United States Armed Forces who are wounded or are killed in combat, and whereas it is established that at least 1,900,000 Purple Hearts have been bestowed upon the brave men and women of the United States military, and whereas Florida is proud to be home to a large population of active duty service members, veterans, and their families, and is committed to serving all those who have courageously defended our country. And whereas the city of Oldsmar appreciates the sacrifices our Purple Heart recipients made in defending our freedoms and believes it is most important that we acknowledge them for their courage and show them the honor and support they have earned, I, Now, therefore, I, Dan Saraki, council member for Eric Seidel, mayor of the city of Oldsmar, Florida, do hereby proclaim Wednesday, August 7th, 2019, as Purple Heart Day in the city of Oldsmar, and encourage the citizens to recognize the heroic service of all who have received the Purple Heart and show their appreciation for the sacrifices our Purple Heart recipients have made in defending our freedoms, to acknowledge their courage and to show them the honor and support they have earned. Dated August 6th, day of August, 2019. Eric, you want to join me downstairs?
I do. And before I do, Mark, if you all would come up, please. Before I do, I also want to announce that and I'm not going to read it because there's some similarities there, but I did want to announce that the Pinellas County Board of County Commissioners also have a proclamation that I'm going to present you with. Commissioner Dave Eggerts couldn't be here. He wanted to be there tomorrow, but they're doing a dedication tomorrow as well. So I did want to take this opportunity to recognize them and thank them for this as well.
May have been your first, but that was great.
Oh, yeah. Well done.
Tom's in all the pictures.
Well, maybe the only way you make that is to actually send it. I know council comment. That would be nice. But it was just, it didn't work, but.
Even if it's, mine wasn't very good.
Very good.
I'm going to look like an idiot.
Oh, you want to
I do that normally.
I did take time in writing my poem.
I wanted to introduce you. The gentleman with me is Mel Cleggan. He's the commander of the Military Order Purple Heart, JFK Chapter 1963 in Dunedin, Florida, which is the first Purple Heart city in Florida. We just kind of missed being the first Purple Heart city by a couple weeks, someplace out in Wisconsin or whatever, kind of snuck it in about a week before us. But at least we're the first one in the city, and I believe Oldsmar is probably the second Purple Heart city in the state of Florida.
Wow.
Okay, so we have that distinction. Okay, but I wanted to thank you, Mayor Seidel, and all council members, past and present, for bestowing this great honor on the city of Oldsmar. I'd also like to thank Leisure Services Department Director Chip Potts, his staff, City Manager Al Braithwaite, and Assistant City Manager Felicia Donnelly for their dedication in making the Purple Heart Memorial at Veterans Park more than just an idea, but a beautiful addition to the park. Okay, that by proclaiming the city of Oldsmar Purple Heart City for the last 5 years has been a great way of honoring the men and women who were wounded during combat. We need to remember that freedom is not free. All gave some gave all, and some are still giving. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, and hope to see you all tomorrow at the ceremony.
We'll be there.
Absolutely.
Be there.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Dan, you did a good job.
Thank you, Mayor, for letting me do that.
Well done, well done.
Honored, very honored. Thank you.
Well done, all right. Item number 10 on the agenda, an update on the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. As some of you know, that I have asked Mayor B and Mayor Beavis, Mayor Beaverland to work on this on behalf of the city with our Veterans Affairs Advisory Board. And so the mayor has been kind enough to come give us an update. How's it feel to be on the other side of the...
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Out of order! No, I'm sorry.
Burn a little bit.
Nice to finally put a face with the name. A lot of nice things about you, Mayor Seidel. A lot better than the previous mayor. No, I'm here to give an update on, you were kind enough to ask us to kind of be the liaison between the City Council and the Veterans Advisory Board in reference to specifically the Vietnam Veterans Monument Memorial. So Mayor Beaverland and myself attended their meeting. I didn't have a complete grasp on exactly the breadth of it, but at any rate, the item was to discuss a Vietnam Veteran Memorial Monument. The Veterans Advisory Board, and I believe it's in the packet, I think, maybe?
Yes.
An idea, only a suggestion. It was some interesting dialogue. I don't know that there was a particular feeling one way or another, and some of the members are here and they can correct me. The Vietnam Veterans Monument is a great way to honor them. There are several board members that are Vietnam veterans, and I think as typical veterans of war or veterans in general, you sometimes don't necessarily like the limelight shown on you. And so the suggestion or an idea that you have in front of you was to maybe, there's a couple options that were kind of discussed. One is to simply do a monument or a wall similar to that, doesn't necessarily need to be that honors all veterans of combat, and you have the list in front of you. That was one thought. The second thought was to do that, followed by maybe you honor over time the different groups that have fought combat, with the Vietnam veterans being first. Or the other thought is to not do the initial honoring of all the combat veterans and just go with the suggestion of the Vietnam veteran. Those were the kind of the discussion items. Am I somewhat correct on that? Yeah. And so the thought was, and I wanted to make sure I cleared it with them, and there was a couple little side notes that I'll share with you that came up at the meeting. But the thought was for me to come and give you an update on kind of how the meeting went and get some input from the council so that we don't proceed down a path that ultimately the council is not supportive of. And we don't want to waste time of the committee and the advisory board to go in a direction that the council doesn't want to go. Mayor Beaverland and myself has said that we will support whatever the council and the advisory board so chooses. A little bit of a dialogue was had as it relates somewhat to fundraising. There was a comment made respectfully that if you lump all of them together in the one monument and honor all of them, it probably, and I don't know this to be the case or not, but I value the opinion, and it does somewhat make sense that fundraising might be a little bit harder if you put them all together because, you know, they feel like they're somewhat, you know.
On a list.
Yeah, yeah. And the comment was made that if you do them individually, maybe initially starting with the Vietnam veteran monument, that you'll certainly get a lot larger support from the individual group because they're standing behind their particular one, whatever it is, Korean War. Another comment was made, and so what you could do, the thought was similar to I think it's called the Ring of Honor that they're putting out, a wreath of that's gonna kind of do that you could acknowledge, and I think in some conversation with the assistant city manager that this has kind of been addressed a little bit in Clearwater. Is that somewhat correct? Okay, that there is a process for that. And that you would do one, but with the intent of, and that's the other reason we wanted to come here was because kind of took on a different flavor. And because I think the initial thought, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor, was that was weird. Was that
Yes, Mayor, go ahead.
was that thought, and it was that the Vietnam monument would go opposite the Purple Heart to kind of give it some balance, and so adding this other level you kind of need to step back and really even think of the layout. Where does it go? Do we really want to go that way? Is that what we're looking to do? I mean, I think, you know, the more we honor them, all of them, the better. I did make the comment that that the park itself is in tribute to veterans, but I was corrected, and justly so, that this is about people in combat as opposed to non-combat veterans, which is what we do with the park in general. So those are kind of the thoughts. Am I missing anything in general?
There's still going to be a lot of discussion on it, on how we want to do it. I've offered suggestions to other council members and brought it up as a matter of fact, one addition to come up with better ideas.
Yeah.
If you're gonna,
Yeah.
if you don't mind coming up, just so that it's recorded and the thousands of
It just
people
kind of took a
watching at home
different, it kind of took a
can
different
hear
look.
you. Go ahead, can you repeat what you just said?
Yeah, like I said, there was a lot of discussion coming back and forth, and like I says, John Ruckert, who'd come up here, and he directed all of us on council to come up here with an idea of exactly how we want to do it, what we want, so that we're not just fishing or holding it off or tabling it to our next meeting. I know we only have 4, maybe 5 meetings per year. We wanted to delay it. It says there was, I believe you have the monument that I had brought up at the last meeting, and there's other monuments that are similar to that. As a matter of fact, Mel was just telling me that he has one, not only is it all the wars, but it has the dates of the wars and how many people were lost. I mean, we can put it however we want. We can make the monument our own. It was just my personal suggestion is, how much do we make it a monument park as compared to having it as a veterans park? If we start putting the Iwo Jima up there, if we put the World War II memorial, if we put the Vietnam memorial, I mean, we're just going to fill it up with memorials. I think it's very nice, but I also think it detracts a little bit from the park itself.
It's interesting.
They do have one of those over at 301. It's very interesting over there at Veterans Park in Tampa, where they have all the different memorials for all the different parks. It's quite a bit larger than ours. But these are just ideas we got to come up with. I'm only one vote of the 5 people that are on the board.
Sure.
We're looking for as much input so that we make the right decisions we can.
All right, I think we got an idea of the picture of things.
And correct me if I'm wrong, there are some of the combats or the wars that in DC, I don't remember who made it at the meeting, but that don't have, I think World War I does not have a memorial.
Not yet, no.
Yeah, and so there are some that, Desert Storm, Desert Shield, I think. Is that correct?
Afghanistan, none of the, if you would go modern wars, more current wars, do not have memorials.
But still need to be
Middle East.
But at least with the plaque, they would at least be
acknowledged.
recognized.
Right. All right. Let's have a little bit of discussion. I'm curious as to, I'll set some of the backdrop, as you know. And first off, thank you, Mayor Bibas and Mayor Bieberlin, who's not here, but I know that he was there at the
I talked to
meeting
him
as well.
earlier tonight and told him I would fill him in.
So, I mean, I appreciate it. And part of the goal, we have a process here where our advisory board, they have 3 primary goals, or they were created in a resolution to have 3 particular points. One is to make recommendations on the names of folks that go up on the wall in there or go in the park. 2 was to work specifically on anything in that park with leisure services. And 3 was to advise this council on veterans affairs within the city of Oldsmar, right? And so this falls right into that, obviously. And as you know, some of you may not know, but for those of you who don't, this was an idea that originally popped up at the Citizens Open Forum by Mayor Bieberlin. And in Mayor Bieberlin's fashion, he threw out a great idea and then said, I'm leaving. So we reached out to him and said, not so fast. So, because I believe that these 2 past mayors would be quite instrumental in helping fundraise for such a type of event. So in any event, I'm just going to go right down and kind of give me your 2 cents worth. Try to keep it to a couple minutes, if you can.
So I love the idea of all of them being on one monument as opposed to having a lot of monuments. But does that mean that we're doing the monument is going to be for all wars as opposed to a Vietnam veteran memorial?
Well, I think that was kind of the dialogue. Initially, the meeting was to be for the Vietnam veteran, and it kind of took a little bit of a different spin. And so it's kind of do you do that one and start with the Vietnam? Or
I think if I can, I'm going to frame the conversation right. So I think the way that the conversation ended was, here's one option, do a monument to all wars, right? Here's another option, do a monument to all wars with the intent to have future possible individual monuments to follow in the future. And
So
the
all
third
wars
was,
or Vietnam and then add the other wars in the future.
right,
Gotcha.
all, and then with Vietnam, or just what the original conversation was. So that's kind of to frame it and just where you're at on that.
Okay, well, thank you guys so much. It's exciting.
I just got a short thing. Since I became on council, one thing that I really enjoy is Veterans Days and Memorial Day ceremonies at that park. I think that park is something that's very special to our city and the citizens. I like to tend to look at the big picture, and I sort of like the idea of forward thinking and having monuments around the park for each war over time. I'm not talking about like tomorrow or the next day. Long-term, I think it should be a long-term goal plan that is set for monuments for each war. That's just my opinion. That's all I'll say.
Excellent. Councilmember Gannon.
Initially, when I saw the example of the list of all wars, I felt internally what was sort of described by Mayor Beeve as sort of that natural deflection by our veterans. But I felt like we had sort of specifically promised at, Memorial Day and during that council meeting that we were working on a Vietnam veterans memorial of some sort. I also would be in favor of creating some kind of plan for the park to do. I use the word monument, but it doesn't necessarily have to be of the size and scale to balance the Purple Heart, monument. Perhaps it could be something we're not even considering. I would love to see examples maybe from other cities on different layouts for a park to include monuments to different wars. But my heart was leaning toward, and still is leaning toward, a Vietnam-specific type of monument. And if that sets into motion in the future, over the course of the next 75 years, a series of monuments to other wars, I'm okay with that, as long as it's in keeping with the feeling and the scale and size of the other monuments in the park, such that we, are mindful of what we're creating.
Okay, so you're in favor if we were to recommend that they go back and consider moving forward with a Vietnam Veterans Memorial?
I am. I'm not necessarily opposed to the option, which is to list all wars and do that. I'm okay with that too. I felt like doing only the list of wars was not my initial intention.
Okay.
I wanted something more than that. And unfortunately, we live in an era where, there might have to be additions to this list. And I felt like, we don't want to kind of corner ourselves with that kind of monument. Let's stick with, whom we were intending to honor. That was my thought.
Vice Mayor, excuse me.
I agreed. I think that we should move forward, if it were my guidance, with the Vietnam Memorial as intended. But I also had a conversation with Al, and I thought, this Veterans Memorial Park. It's a beautiful park. Naturally, you may not want to take away from the skyline, the sunset, the thing that everyone enjoys when they come to that park. And so I think there's a way, to Katie's point, that potentially you can also, in addition to that, honor other wars and sort of the number of those who were lost in the future, of doing its potentially plaques around the park to make it more walkable, so that people don't just sort of centralize just on the memorial in the center, but actually walk through the park and learn other parts of history throughout. So that could be through plaques, it could be through bricks, things of that nature, but that would just be a suggestion on my part.
Okay.
And Mayor, if I could real quick, and I think Dave Tilkey has something, and I think that was the reason we came here, was because if you do the option of the all wars and then start with the veterans, really needs to go back to the city and revisit a layout.
Absolutely. Listen, I have
if you do the one, that's probably
plenty
easy,
of comments.
Yeah, so that's, Dave's got, I think.
Yeah. If I could maybe frame it a little different from my recollection of the meeting, and please don't focus, the monument you're looking at that lists the wars, I mean, Mark brought that to us as an example of a monument that could be put there. I would say don't focus on that. I think when we left our meeting, what we wanted to do was, we kind of agreed that we really didn't want to do just the Vietnam War Memorial, although that was not ruled out. And I think we left saying, let's have a clean slate. Let's look at what all of our options may be, and everybody on the board is going to be bringing different ideas, including the committee and anybody else, citizenry that wants to give some ideas, whether to do a single monument that maybe is just a monument to all wars without listing them, and then start maybe in a plaza kind of setting with a Vietnam one, you know, the Desert Storm, different ones either in a plaza area or around the park. But I think what we left the meeting at was that we wanted to start with a clean slate and not leave the meeting and saying, okay, we're going to move forward with this particular type. And the reason that the mayor wanted to come back here was because that was quite different than
What the
what
directive was.
given
Right.
to us was
Absolutely.
to discuss a single war. I'm a Vietnam era vet myself, you know, it's very, very near and dear to my heart. However, I feel that there's many other war veterans out there that need the same recognition of the battles that they fought. And we need to figure out a way to include them all. And there's many different ways to do it. And I think what the board wanted to come back here and ask was, are we moving in the right, are they going to be moving in the right
Okay,
direction?
all right, good, excellent.
I have
All right.
one
Yeah, that's what I was
real
saying.
quick
We
question,
don't
just a
wanna go down
point of
the wrong path.
clarification.
Okay.
I don't understand, I'm sorry to say, I don't know what the Ring of Honor idea is. What is that idea?
It's they're going to do it by Egmont, I think it is, and they've got
I
like
think-
6-foot concrete statues that they're dropping down.
But it's not specific to wars, it's representing different branches.
It's the branches.
Oh, I got you, okay.
It's a different.
I heard you mention
Right.
it, but I wasn't
Yes,
sure what
it's
it
not,
was.
it's not the same thing.
And it's for scuba
All right,
divers.
so let me
It's for
jump
scuba
in here.
divers.
Yeah, let me jump in here.
it's a similar idea.
And hopefully we'll never be able to have them go scuba diving at the park, even though we're on the water, right? So I'm going to make a suggestion to council. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think essentially that the board, the Veterans Advisory Board, kind of looking to say, I know you guys asked us to go do this and look at this, but there's a lot of different things to think about, and we'd like to go work through those issues and maybe come back with a suggestion that comes out of that board. Is that in a nutshell? Because I think that's probably the best bet. We're not gonna, look, you know, we have people on that board who are on there for a reason. They've done a great job so far, you know? And I have no doubt that will continue. And so I would be in favor, and it doesn't really require a vote because this is not an item that's been voted on. I will look for consensus, just out of respect for the council, that we say, we understand there's some complicated issues here. It was a great idea, but if nothing else, Mayor Beaverland's original idea got us thinking about a lot of other kind of things that we can do that perhaps it makes sense for the board to take a bigger, longer view, or the advisory board to take a bigger, longer view of what are some possibilities long-term. And so if everyone's okay with that, if we have consensus to ask the advisory board to go back and go work through that and, you know, essentially come back at some point with some ideas. I don't think it's time sensitive per se, other than that I know there are interests in terms of helping raise money to accomplish that.
Can I just ask, just for clarity, is there any consensus on option A and or B versus C, which is just the Vietnam veteran? It didn't sound like that there was
Well, I'll
anybody
say
that just
this.
wanted to do that. So
If
we can
was-
eliminate that.
Right, if that was our only discussion, right? Not that, you know, there might be some other ways to do this with markers and things like that around the park. But if that was our only discussion, after thinking about it, my own preference would be is that if we were doing one monument, it would be to honor all wars. That would be mine.
So
Yours is Vietnam? Yes, no, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth.
With the intention of honoring other
Others in the future.
wars
One
in the
off.
future,
Do you agree with that?
and not necessarily
We don't
to the
have to
scale
agree.
and size to balance the Purple Heart, or locate it at the
I
Purple
think
Heart.
they should keep planning.
I look forward to the next.
Yeah, I mean, we've already agreed
I
that,
think, yeah, because I actually understand you guys' points, and if Mayor Beaverland had come up with the idea, then you guys got together and you put a lot of thought into this,
I was thinking the same thing as Councilmember Gannon, that I thought it was going to be a Vietnam, memorial, but it's a good point. These are a lot of people that aren't being honored if we only do Vietnam. But yes, long-term
So
plan.
singular is probably not what we're looking at.
Probably not. So let's
We're
move.
split. I
let's-
think we're split.
Well,
aren't we?
I think at the end, what we had a consensus on is to say to the board, go back. We recognize that there's a lot of different facets to it, and so you have our support to go do that.
Okay, so we're not locked into the Vietnam.
You are not
War.
locked into
No.
any one shape or
And like
form.
it says, mainly like it says, there's still a lot of Korean World War II people out there and future other wars.
Yeah.
Iran, Afghanistan,
Yeah,
Kuwait, everything like that. They're still out
Yeah.
there in our audience. So somebody's going to get hurt feelings somewhere along the line, but you try to limit.
absolutely. All right, well, listen, thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate
Thank you.
all your work on this and
Good
making us
job.
think about a lot of different stuff when we bring that up. And, I'm gonna use this as an opportunity, because sometimes, and all of us are guilty of this at times as council members, when we talk about an idea, we should be cautious not to say we're doing it. Okay, because that doesn't mean we're doing it, it means it's an idea. So if you're gonna talk about it, clarify, this is an idea, right? Just so we don't set the wheels in motion before we've fully vetted it out, all right? Thank you, Mr. Mayor, I appreciate you coming out on your Tuesday night. I know that you have big plans always on Tuesday now, so there you go. All right, next item on the agenda is the city attorney, Mr. Tom Trask.
I have item number 11, which is Resolution 2019-11. I'll read that by title only. Resolution 2019-11, a resolution of the City of Oldsmar, Florida, establishing a committee to review the city ordinances, providing for the composition of the committee and certain procedural requirements, providing for the duties and responsibilities thereof, and providing for an effective date hereof. That was the reading of Resolution 2019-11. Ann, did you want to address the staffing on it, or did you want me to do that?
Well, you can go ahead and do that.
Okay, Mayor. So, so the staffing that you got before you is that your charter requires you on an every 5-year basis to create an ordinance review committee. This is just the process in doing that. The resolution itself is a resolution that would adopt or set forth a committee of 7 members. Sometime in the near future, you'd be picking who those 7 members would be. It also provides that they would pick a chairman and a vice chairman and establish any rules if they thought that those were necessary, and also directing that they complete their work within a 9-month period of time. And they would, of course, determine what their meeting dates would be, whether it would be monthly or more often than that. So with that, we're asking that you adopt Resolution 2019-11 to establish the Ordinance Review Committee.
I'll entertain a motion to adopt Resolution 2019-11. I have a motion?
Second?
Motion second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you. Item number 12 on your agenda is the first reading and public hearing on Ordinance 2019-07. I'll read that by title only. Ordinance 2019-07, an ordinance declaring the intention of the City of Oldsmar, Florida, to annex certain real property located in Section 22, Township 28 South, Range 16 East, further described as Lot 15, Block 17, Map Section Number 1, West Oldsmar, parcel number 22 28 16 96660 017 0150, into the corporate limits of the City of Oldsmar and providing for an effective date of this ordinance. That was a reading of Ordinance 2019-07 by title only.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second?
Any discussion? Oh, you need hearing, I'm sorry. Is there anybody from the public who'd like to speak on this? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Chair will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Any discussion?
One at a time.
One at a time, I was waiting for it. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Norris?
Yes.
Councilmember Surratt?
Yes.
Vice Mayor McKee?
Yes.
Councilmember Gannon?
Yes.
Mayor Seidel?
Yes.
19-07, annexing 3625 Meriden Avenue into the corporate limits of the City of Oldsmar, passes with 5 votes for and 0 against.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Thank you, sir. City manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 13 is request council approval to award 2019-012 invitation to bid for what's called a tow-behind impact attenuator. The award is to go to a company called Striping Service and Supply, Inc. On April 16th, 2018, the Oldsmar Council authorized the manager to advertise purchase bid 2019, sorry, the original date's wrong, it was April 16, 2019, to advertise purchase bid 2019-012-ITB for an impact tow-behind attenuator. One bid was received from Striping Service and Supply Incorporated to supply this unit. Purchase of this piece of equipment will help ensure the safety of the crews who are responsible for maintaining the numerous medians and rights-of-way on city, county, and state roads throughout the city by providing greater visibility, enhanced traffic direction, and a buffer should a crash occur. The total for this purchase is $28,385, and funding is included in the fiscal 2018-19 capital budget under the Parks Division General Ledger Account 001-172-572-60-64-21, and staff recommends approval. And for council education, there is a picture of it on page 50.
Very good. The chair will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, we need it on Tampa Road.
Right?
Safety, safety.
All right, since you're ready to vote, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes. Next item.
Mayor, item 14 is request council approval to waive bid requirements and award contract for sanitary sewer rehabilitation services associated with the Harbor Palms infrastructure project to Granite Inliner LLC under the same terms and conditions as the City of Plantation, Florida contract number 041-14 for gravity sewer main rehabilitation on piggyback form 16-004. This work will be conducted primarily within the Harbor Palms neighborhood to support the Harbor Palms Infrastructure Improvement Project. Granite Inliner has previously inspected the project area, and the design engineer Jones Edmonds and Associates have identified additional sewer lines that require lining. This work will coincide with the multi-year infrastructure project. Other areas of the city may also be included in this contract on an as-needed basis. The work is budgeted in GL account in the Water and Sewer Fund, and the contract fees will not exceed $125,000, and staff recommends approval.
Chair will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 15 is request council to award 2019-001 invitation to bid City Hall rooftop air conditioning units replacement to Britain Air Incorporated. On April 16th, 2019, the Oldsmar City Council authorized the city manager to advertise bid 2019-011-ITB for the replacement of rooftop air conditioning units at City Hall. 6 bids were received for the above referenced project. Each was reviewed for consistency and errors, and the references were contacted. This project will replace 4 rooftop air conditioner units at City Hall. The units are nearing the end of their useful lifespan, as 2 of the current units were installed in 2004 and are 15 years old, and 2 were installed in 2006 and are now 13 years old. The cost of this project is $48,104.10, including contingency. Funding for the City Hall air conditioner replacement project is included in the 2018-19 capital budget in the Facilities Division, and staff recommends approval.
Sir. Chair will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion.
I'm just curious as for Al, I got a question for Al. It seems like,
Councilmember Norris.
thank you, sorry. It seems like 13 and 15 years is a pretty good stretch.
We've had warranty work done on them. We've had a horrible experience with the units. We've sank a boatload of money into consistently fixing them. This is just kind of the end of the road. And I would say that we have an employee, Steve Capola, who's been with us for maybe 7 or 8 years now, has a previous employment history in the air conditioning industry, and he has saved us thousands of dollars in being able to keep them kicking along. We can't keep kicking them any longer.
Right, I got you. I mean, I thought that it had to have been something like that because our city employees do so much work and save us money, so, okay, thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 16 is waive bid requirements and approve the use of the City of Tarpon Springs contract RFP 180089-P-RS on piggyback form 18-021 with McKimmon Creed Incorporated to conduct controls, maintenance, and upgrades at the reverse osmosis water treatment plant. This contract is for SCADA system programming, preventative maintenance, and repairs. The work performed under this contract will address the communications errors as well as perform necessary preventative maintenance. McKimmon Creed has agreed to allow Oldsmar to piggyback on the Tarpon Springs contract that I previously mentioned before on the SCADA system under the same terms and conditions. The work will be completed on a time and materials basis not to exceed $30,000 and is budgeted in the Water Sewer Fund. And again, staff recommends approval.
All right, Chair will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion. Signifying you're ready to vote by not talking.
I'm surprised we didn't have this already.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 17 is request council approval for the Advanced Life Support First Responder Agreement with Pinellas County Emergency Medical Services Authority. The Pinellas County EMS Authority is a special district which was created for the purpose of providing emergency medical services throughout Pinellas County. Pinellas County EMS Authority has contracted with various municipalities and independent special fire districts in the county to provide first responder services. Transport component was separately contracted with a private transport service. The current agreement expires on September 30th of this year. The proposed agreement has a few changes. In summary, they relate as much to public education reimbursement requirements, and on the good news side, they will now fund a larger portion of our EMS coordinator's salary, so we will get approximately $30,000 to $40,000 more for the upcoming year. That's subject to change each year. It is a 5-year agreement, would expire September 30th, 2024. There's an option to extend it for another 5. This agreement has been reviewed by legal counsel, and staff recommends approval.
Chair will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 18 is request council approval to authorize city manager to negotiate 2019-008 RFQ, the Oldsmar Public Art Project. With mayor's permission, I'd like to ask Assistant City Manager Felicia Donnelly to present this item.
Absolutely. Thank
She's
you.
been far more involved in it than I have.
Yeah, and while she's coming up there, Al and I had some discussion about the way we have this laid out on the agenda. I don't want the council to assume that this means that we have approved this project because it's authorizing him to move forward. If we don't, then clearly we don't, right? So with that being said.
So this item is to request the council approval of the ranking as presented by the selection committee and to authorize the city manager to negotiate the contract with the artist in order of the ranking. And so on February 19th of this year, the city council approved the advertisement of the call to artists for a commissioned piece of public art in downtown area. At the meeting, the council also approved a selection committee for the public art piece. The selection committee is comprised of a member of the North Pinellas Cultural Alliance, which is Linda Norris, a design professional urban planner, John Buse, a professional fine artist from Oldsmar, Jorge Trujillo Mendoza, a member of the Creative Pinellas organization, Christopher Hubbard, member of the Upper Tampa Bay Chamber of Commerce, Jason Sanders, and the City of Oldsmar art coordinator, Lisa Schmid. I see that Jason and Lisa are in the audience tonight, so I wanted to recognize them. The call to artists using Cafe was extremely successful. We had about 40 applicants. The selection committee reviewed a lot of paperwork associated with that. Each artist, from full resumes to letters to some of them even had videos to a collection of a large body of work for professional artists. So they took their time to carefully review those. They came back and asked permission to interview the top 3 candidates, which they did on July 20th, in accordance with the criteria that we set out in the call, just like any other selection committee. On July 20th, they came in for an hour each. So the artists came and they presented to the selection committee, and the selection committee had a period of Q&A. associated with that. So that's why they met for such a long time. It took us a while. They ranked each piece based on the criteria as identified in the call. So that was what the past experience of the artist was in general, including their educational background, and then specific public art experience to make sure that they actually can execute a piece in the public space. It's different than something that may be indoor. They looked at the proposals as far as meeting the certain criteria that were laid out. So that was that the piece had to be iconic. The piece has to represent the uniqueness of Oldsmar, and the piece has to be interactive in the pedestrian environment. So those three major things they ranked them on. They also, references was part of that mix. So the ranking came out as Donald Giulianella, Taking Flight. You all can see that in your packet. He is a local Pinellas artist. He's, I wanna call him industrial metal art. The second one was Clayton Swartz, Metamorphosis, which was a larger butterfly. The third one is Chris Wrench out of Oregon, and Oldsmar O Benches. The committee ranked the sculpture Taking Flight as the highest. They thought that it was a significant presence. The sculptures, the wings themselves are about 12 feet high. It's going to be made with Cortan steel and Oldsmobile parts at the top of the wing. So the artist wanted to incorporate our history. I did bring a piece of the Cortan steel, and I'm not sure if you guys can see, but it's very reflective. And then also, you know, the Taking Flight represents our transformation from a rural area to a modern suburban city. And the stainless steel is meant to represent the beauty of the natural environment. At the top of each wing is would be welded Oldsmobile parts. The artist said that he would take contributions from that, from our local community, so that they could donate a piece, and a part of that would be incorporated so that the community feels invested into the piece. And then the last element was that it was designed to be interactive, where visitors are invited to wear the wings, and that it provides pedestrian engagement and helps promote the sculpture through kind of Instagrammable social media moments. So the three proposals were all attached in your packets, and staff recommends approval of the ranking so that the city manager can negotiate a contract. Any questions?
All right, let's do this. Well, why don't we have a little discussion first before we get into
I
it?
just want to point out something that you might not notice. The first photograph, the wings are white.
Councilmember Norris.
What am I supposed to do? Say, may I be recognized or something? Okay.
Because I might not want you to go first.
I apologize, Mayor.
That's okay.
May I be recognized?
Yes, you may.
Please.
Please, yes.
Just real quick, I still want to discuss, but just to point something out. The wings are not going to be white. If you look at the first page, it looks like the wings are going to be white. You need to look at the second page to see the bird, the ibis or whatever this bird is. And that's the artist, by the way. But anyway, they're going to be that. They're not going to be white. They're going to be metal. They're going to be reflective. So that kind of threw me when I first saw that. I was like, that's odd. So I just wanted to point that out before we had further discussion.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
I just had a question, and you see that almost all of them were scored pretty closely. I think they all did a great job, and I love the wings. At first, I was like, oh, that's interesting. I wasn't sure how it represented Oldsmar, and then obviously when I read more about it, I really liked it. But I did want to ask, if the community doesn't have Oldsmobile parts to donate, what is the artist's plan to procure those without adding additional cost to the proposal?
He said that the wings will include Oldsmobile parts.
Okay.
So he will acquire those.
That's a
That
requirement.
will be part of his contract.
Okay.
Great. That's all I had.
Councilmember Gannon.
I just wanted to be sure, it's my understanding that this is an up, down, yes, no vote on authorizing the city manager to negotiate, correct?
Correct.
We're not debating
We're
the
accept,
merits of
essentially,
any of
the
this.
motion that I'm going to ask for is twofold, I think. I'm going to ask for a motion that accepts the ranking from the committee and authorizes the city manager to negotiate with the top ranking individual.
Okay. I don't
Would you
know.
like me to separate those motions?
I think it's a good idea, but we have already got a motion for.
There is no motion on
Oh,
the
there was no
floor.
motion, okay. I think we should separate the two.
Okay. Councilmember Saraki.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to say thank you for your hard work, you and your committee for getting this done. I think it's fantastic, number one. Thank you so much for your hard work. But number two, I just want to say I have some old hubcaps I'm going to donate.
There we go.
And they're Oldsmobile.
Solved.
That's all
I have a couple comments that I'm going to add. I'm going to, candidly, it wasn't my first choice when I saw the three, but I'm going to respect the committee because I recognize my limitations in the area of art. I will say this, though, the motion that's being made, and I suppose I should get some clarification myself, because even the recommended, we're accepting the ranking, not the location of where this is going.
Correct.
Okay, because I'm not a fan of it going in front of City Hall. I don't think that's the place for it.
Just the ranking.
Okay, and so that I think is pretty important. I mean, I was gonna put it in Al's office, but, because he could stand right, no, too far. All right, so if there's no other discussion,
Well, yes, I wanted
Go right
to
ahead.
speak of a few things. Okay, so to have a little bit more of an understanding of the process that we went through and how we came up with it, it wasn't us picking first choice, second choice, third choice. It wasn't that easy. When you look at the rankings, that's a lot of scoring of different things. So like Felicia said, it was, whether or not they had public art experience, their resume, their body of work, it was a lot of different things. It would have been so much easier just to go 1, 2, 3, but that's not how we did it. And
That's a
with
good
all the
point.
professionals that were on it, that's how it came to this ranking. So I think that's important to know.
Very
It-
important.
It's important to know because it was a lot of work. I mean, we had 40 submissions. It took days to go through everything, days, and to get down to these three. And then when they made their presentations, the presentations really helped us because we could ask them. And Donald also uses a lot of apprentices and he teaches kids. I mean, there's a lot of other things that you don't know about him that went into a little bit in our decision. And yes, Mayor, it's not, he only put it in front of it's up to
Excellent.
y'all. It's
Right.
up to us wherever it's gonna go.
Right.
And it is kind of hard to imagine it being all the stainless steel other than the white, but when he showed us processes and videos and stuff like that, it was brilliant. So that's just, and
excellent.
yeah.
And so I'm gonna take Councilmember Gannon's advice and split these two in the event that we cannot come to an agreement with the number one ranked, then we have a second one ranked automatically. So at this time, the chair will entertain a motion to accept the committee's rankings.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Can I second it, you being on the committee?
Yeah.
Yes, second.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes. I'll also entertain a motion to authorize the city manager to negotiate with the number one ranked artist.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
I have a similar sort of feeling as you. It wasn't my first choice, but I respect the decision of the committee.
What was your first choice?
The O's.
And I will say, I love the O's because I think first it represents Oldsmar in a great way, but keep in mind, is anyone going to sit outside in a bench right now in Florida for the next 3 months? That was my initial thought was, wow, that's great. We'll never, ever see anyone sitting there except in January.
Yeah,
I can speak to that.
I was only
I can
concerned about
speak
the
to that
trendiness.
because a lot of people like the O's, okay? We are thinking in the future, when we have downtown, and we are thinking of not just an O, we're thinking of Oldsmar.
Right.
And because there's places in the world that those are photographed. I'm sure you've been to them, Gabby, as many places have you been? Kids crawl all over them and everything.
But
if
we
they're
already accepted
Oldsmar-
that.
Well, now we know a
ranking.
great artist too.
right.
Yeah,
but-
so I'm.
So we accepted that ranking, so the discussion's
Right,
probably
so, yeah.
not
so
germane to.
Could be a
our-
future project.
Sure.
Let me see, I had a motion and
And
a
a second.
second. Any further discussion? Sensing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes. Thank you, Felicia. And thank you. Thank you. And here's another thing to consider with the O's. right? And I'm a fan of that as well.
Yeah.
You know, as Councilmember Norris pointed out, there were many factors that went into that. Which
Yes.
probably incorporates deliverable, history, that kind of thing. So that makes me feel good. All
And
right.
one thing about the O's that I didn't like as much is he didn't make it just for us. There's other ones out there. It's just I mean, not
But
to,
not an exclusive on the O,
not
huh?
exclusive on the O, so
Doggone
it
it.
wasn't exclusive to Oldsmar. So
All
I
right.
didn't-
City
you,
manager.
Item 19, request council approval to waive bid requirements and use the City of Clearwater contract 16-0016-EN on piggyback form 19-002 for the pricing terms and conditions to contract with Central Florida contractors for curb and sidewalk repair and replacement in selected areas citywide. The project involves the replacement of deteriorating and non-conforming sidewalks and curbs in various areas of the city. The work completed through this project will address repairs that are beyond the scheduling capabilities of the current city maintenance personnel. Additionally, this project will address Americans with Disabilities Act deficiencies in order to comply with the current standards. Work will be completed based on unit prices in the Clearwater contract document, not to exceed $55,000, which is a budget amount for fiscal year 19. Funds of the project are included in the Capital Improvement Fund in Fund 302. And there is a list on page 150 of the planned, no, not 150, 153 of, if anybody wanted to look at the plan for the locations we hope to do with it. And staff recommends approval.
The chair will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved?
Second.
A motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes. Item 20.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 20 is request council approval to award the bid for employee medical, dental, vision, and HRA administrative benefits for fiscal year 2019-2020. City instructed our benefits consultant, the Gehring Group, Mr. Fleming is here with an associate, to bid our health insurance-related coverages to include medical, dental, and vision, along with third-party vendor for administering the health reimbursement account benefit, which we provide to employees. In total, 3 bids were received for the medical, 14 for the dental, 11 for the vision, and 4 for the HR administration. The medical coverage was the most significant and the most expensive. Of the bids received, Cigna was far and away the most competitive and is our recommendation for securing all health-related coverages, meaning all 3, medical, dental, and vision. As council knows, there are several changes being proposed here. One will involve no longer offering the wellness center, but the pricing is so significantly better with Cigna that we were able to buy up the plan to offer primary care visits at your own doctor for free, which is one of the features of what made the wellness center so popular. And in addition, it has a hearing benefit, which I'm a fan of, as most of you know why, that we've never seen in a medical plan before. And we think this is a great, in fact, we saved so much money. We're also recommending that we pick up the vision coverage. It was a package deal with Cigna, and we're offering that as, it was a supplemental coverage up till now. As part of the budget, we're recommending that we offer it to pay for it for all full-time employees. So the entire cost of the medical benefit to the city will represent a 1.3% increase from where we are this current fiscal year. The dental coverage is a 7.4 decrease. And as I mentioned before, the vision is going to be covered by the city for the first time if the council approves the budget. The HR administrator benefit will remain the same cost and the same vendor, so there's no cost difference there, same administrator. I'm very excited about this plan, and I'm sure Mr. Fleming can answer any questions. I hope I can, but we very strongly recommend approval. And the proposed budget as it currently stands already contains sufficient funding to pay for the cost of all the benefits that we've successfully bid here. Staff recommends approval.
Chair will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved?
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion.
I think it's wonderful.
I wish I could be on the plan.
Me too.
We already
My-
went through that discussion.
My only concern with the plan, which Al had shared with me that they did some vetting on it, and that is, and I know from our own experience, we provide 100% health care for our employees personally, our company does. And switching vendors sometimes or providers, the one challenge you run into is if you have that employee who has some kind of serious condition, and do they have to switch doctors, right? And so the vetting that it sounds like they've done, that's not an issue because there is a lot of overlap in networks. And so that was the only concern I had from past experience, but we have a lot of employees out of state, so it's probably a little different. Any other comments, discussion? Sensing you're ready to vote, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. There you go.
Thank you, sir.
City clerk.
Well, just a reminder, because I'm not sure if it was really mentioned earlier, but the Purple Heart Monument dedication is tomorrow at 11 o'clock. So hope to see people there at Veterans Park.
Indeed, indeed. City Council, item number 21, discuss city council positions on the proposed Florida League of Cities resolutions. I will call on Councilmember Gannon.
So, as you all know, our conference is coming up in another week, and certain resolutions have been proposed to the league, which are included here in the packet. There are 8 separate ones. I didn't want to go through each of them in great detail, only a few of them. The first one is just a general sort of ceremonial recognition in support of Leo Longworth, president of the Florida League of Cities. I did not have any questions on it in general. I assumed that everybody would be in favor of that. I see nodding heads. I'll move forward. Same with Florida City Government Week. I figured everybody would be in approval of that. You're not sure about that one? Should we move it? We'll ask them to move the date. The vice mayor would like them to move the date. I'll write it down.
Out of order, go right ahead.
The census partnership, I didn't feel that there was anything necessarily wrong with partnership on Census 2020. If the league believes that a true census could bring in more dollars to certain cities, more power to them. I don't necessarily know or believe that that would be the case for us, but as far as the words, that we would support Census 2020, it was a thumbs up. Any
I don't think anyone
thought on
has
that? Okay. The Citizens for Energy Choice Constitutional Amendment, which is number 4. This is a sort of home rule based. It contains a great deal of assumptions. I don't think that operating a utility or anything close to it is something we should ever get into doing. But I didn't think we would necessarily vote to remove home rule power of a city that currently does or would undertake to do so, should they dare.
Right.
So I felt that was a yes as well, as more head nod.
Agreed, yeah,
Okay, good.
consensus.
The number 5, the requirements for ADA website compliance. This one I wanted to just mention. I'm sure it's a yes vote, but I wanted to bring it up because a lot of people don't know that there's a rash, really, of frivolous lawsuits that folks are bringing against cities for failing to have an ADA compliant website. And as a result, cities are actually removing information from their websites that was included initially for transparency purposes, usually. I mean, I was speaking with our city manager who stated that we had years of financial documents readily available, PDFs readily available on our website that are no longer there because it's not worth the expenditure from, on our side to translate those documents into the readable format that's required, et cetera. So it's actually rather sad that cities are scaling back the information provided to their citizens and city to city when we want to kind of see what everybody else is doing. So this is kind of an ask, a resolution that acts as an ask for more information, clarification on what we're supposed to do to be compliant, but also to not get sued, because nobody likes that. So I felt that this was a yes vote as well.
Yes, you have consensus.
On number 6, the reauthorization of the National Flood Insurance Program. I thought, again, I figured that we would have consensus that this is a yes, because we've recently kind of encountered this artificially inflated risk due to the FEMA flood mapping, and I felt that our continued involvement in that was an absolute yes. Yep. The broadband infrastructure, number 7. You might recall sort of previously encountering the 5G issue in the form of basically forced free permitting last year, I think it was, where we basically didn't have a choice. I, again, felt that this was something that was good for us to maintain home rule powers. I don't think this prevents us, though, from negotiating with a provider in the future if we could keep it on the table for placement in Oldsmar, so I thought that that was a yes as well. And as to number 8, the CDBG, not to be confused with this CBGB, felt that this was a yes vote as well, but I don't think it necessarily affects us at all. So with that short little speech, I felt that they are all yeses, and I wanted to make sure that I had consensus from the council on this.
We have consensus, we have a consensus on all, to support all the resolutions?
Yes.
I have to say, out of all my terms on council, I have never seen somebody as prepared for the voting delegation, including me. I was like, when I saw this, I'm like, you go, girl, dang,
We made
she
the
did
right choice.
It's like, when I was, so I just want to commend you, Katie, because this was very impressive.
This is true.
And I understand, it's like I understand them more because they're in here instead of just showing up and being the voting member and being the newbie. And so anyway, I want to commend you.
I want to commend our city attorney, Tom Trask, who recommended that we set this up in this way so that I could get the consensus of the council before voting on resolutions.
Excellent.
On our
Very good. Well, Tom should go hold the stick with you. No?
graciously decline.
Declines that. Well, that's right. He'll bill us every hour, so let's not do that. All right, well, good job. Item number 22, approved tentative agenda for August 20th, 2019. Is there anybody who wishes to pull anything from the tentative agenda? Is there anybody who wishes to add anything to the tentative agenda? I had something, but I'm not going to add it, because I think that's going to be a long meeting. All right. Do I have a motion to approve the tentative agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second? I have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes. Item number 23, council comments. And I'm going to start with Councilmember Norris.
Okay, I'll try to be quick because I wanted to thank the Pappas family for the Beechwood Kitchen and Bar Restaurant opening that they had over the weekend, and to let everybody know, please go try it. They have a lot of locally sourced vegetables and seafood, and being a pescatarian, that's important to me, but a lot of locally sourced and beautifully prepared, and it was wonderful. So I wanted to point that out. And then I also want to thank some city departments, because I had a couple of Japanese exchange students stay with me. I hosted them. Kohei and Yunoski, that's the best I can do. And brought them to our parks, brought them to the firehouse, and they got a tour of the firehouse. Brought them to Empower Adventures, and they did zip line in, and they really got a good Oldsmar experience. So brought them to the city clerk so that Ann and Kathy made them up little gift bags with a bunch of cool Oldsmar stuff in it, and they just appreciated everything. And so shout out of thanks to all of y'all. Wanted also to let you know that our 6th month is coming up on the VFW post, where they had to have the VFW post up for 6 months before we could join as auxiliary members. If anyone would like to become an auxiliary member, just let me know. I'll send you the application. I'll have some applications at the ceremony tomorrow, and I think it's like $25 or $30, but then we're the people that help out the guys and women and men at the VFW. So that's coming up, and I think that tomorrow is really special that we're having this dedication for the Purple Heart Monument. I don't know if some of you guys saw my Facebook post, but I did a little research, and we are the 3rd city out of 24 in Pinellas County. Only 3 cities are Purple Heart cities, us, Dunedin, and Seminole. And then in the entire state of Florida, there's only 73 out of 420 412 incorporated municipalities. So it's really a big deal. It's really special. And I already wished Felicia a happy birthday, and the others are afterwards. So that's it. Thank you. Oh, thank you for voting yes on the art. Yes.
Councilmember Saraki.
Thank you, Mayor. I really don't have much. I'm really looking forward to next week at the conference. I'm really looking forward. And I just want to say, Tom and Katie, thank you for your feedback on the resolutions. I just want to make sure I want to invite you. I am actually on the resolutions committee, being the chairman of municipal administrative. I have to be on that board. And that meeting is going to be at 9:15 a.m. right after your meeting. And it's going to be in the Crystal Ballroom G. So if you want to come down, if you're not going to a seminar, then you can see your part, which you do, and then you can see there's like 65, 70 elected officials in this committee, and you'll see how that works. Last year I was also on it, so it's pretty unique. But thank you so much for that. For your leadership in doing that. I think it's great.
Certainly.
Other than that, I really don't have anything, Mayor. We had fun at the new Beechwood Seafood Restaurant. It was an amazing night, but happy birthday to Felicia, and that's really all I have.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Councilmember Gannon.
I wanted to make sure to wish a happy birthday to our city clerk, Bronson, whose birthday occurs on the 17th. We'll all be over in Orlando having a good time. But let's see. Tomorrow, I'm looking forward to the Purple Heart dedication as well as our operational budget meeting, or work session.
You're looking forward to
on
that,
Thursday.
huh? I'm just kidding.
Of course.
I'm just kidding.
Center discussion next week before we leave. Thank you to Al and Felicia for the quick turnaround on the proposals that we received and then subsequently council received from you all. I didn't have anything else for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor, before you go, I want to point out something to you. Since I have skipped you in the past while you were gone, I called on you.
You were
One day we'll get
So
it right.
I get one of them back.
Okay.
Okay? Vice Mayor.
I just have one thing, I just want to give you a heads up because I mentioned it to Al. I mean, tomorrow I am hosting a Cisco customer experience workshop for a partner on site at Tech Data. So it's during the day and I won't be able to make the memorial ceremony, so I apologize, I'll have to miss it, but I'm the host, so I have to be there.
Kind of got to be there.
And of course, happy early birthday to Ann. I always remember it's the day after my dad's birthday. But I'm sure we'll see you on Thursday before then too. So that's all I have, Mayor.
I do have a few items. Happy birthday, Ann. I won't say happy birthday, Felicia, because I've said it like 4 times already. Couple of things. Everyone who is on the agenda, this is more a council, of course, to the public. Once again, don't forget the dedication tomorrow and the ceremonies. Tomorrow is Purple Heart Day nationally, but we also will be dedicating our new monument. I know all of us have some different parts on there. I will tell you, as kind of have been consistent as a council in our participation in putting on the event, there is a guest speaker tomorrow. It's not us, right? My comments will be mayor's comments and welcome. They won't be the guest speaker kind of thing. Just, I suggest we all kind of focus on that. I do have a couple things that I want to touch on. And I've not brought this up before, or maybe I have. As most of you know, we have a program in the CRA. It is a grant program for property improvement. And we've talked about it a little bit before, just kind of the general parameters of the program is where we are providing a new business moving into, or an expanding business, moving into the CRA. Will provide a matching grant up to $5,000, meaning they have to spend at least $5 for us to get to $5, and that's where we cap out, to assist them in beautification and moving in. So we've had that program for some time. I wanted to bring up a question and just see how the council feels about it before we move it to staff to look at. And that is, the Swain property, we have businesses moving out. right? And certainly if they were to move in to another location within the CRA, they, of course, are eligible for this. There are parameters. A certain location, if I remember correctly, a certain location, such as the Galleria, could cap out. I think there's only so much benefit permitted to go to one building, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, I do know because I researched it earlier. So, but I wanted to raise the question, since we do that, and I recognize those funds are CRA funds, okay, which is where that money comes from. It's our TIF money. But I did want to raise the question as to whether or not, since this is somewhat of a unique situation, do we want to consider applying that program in a similar way if one of those businesses that are leaving our property relocates to somewhere outside the CRA but inside the city?
You cannot use those trust funds to do that?
I understand that.
Okay,
I understand it wouldn't come from there.
okay.
Are you sort of talking about sort of expanding, like a beautification grant program to businesses in
Well,
general? Or-
not necessarily. No, I'm really not. I mean, I think our intent is to focus within the CRA. It's a one-off, or whether or not we say, because here's part of the challenge, I think. I don't even know where the people there could go in the CRA. I think there are some places that would be brilliant for them to go, but the question is it something we want to consider, provided that they're relocating their business to stay in the city of Oldsmar?
But if Tom said the answer is we can't do that, I don't understand the.
We cannot do it with the CRA funds.
Oh, I got you. So you're
You can
saying.
do it with your general fund.
General
Do it with
You
our
just can't
general
use it with a
fund.
trust
We
fund.
can't
I
use,
gotcha.
right, because
Okay.
that money's lockbox for this area
Mayor,
downtown.
Mayor, I have a question.
Sure.
You mentioned the cap on the town center. I mean, there's a lot of vacancies there. What is the cap? Is it 10,000, 15?
There is a cap as it relates to a particular building, meaning, and I'll use the Galleria as an example.
Sure.
Okay? So the Galleria has openings, but they could, as a location, cap out as to what we would provide in matching funds, meaning their eligibility can terminate after, and I believe it's after one within a certain calendar year.
Okay, one.
Right? And the intent of that, I think, when it was created, was to say, okay, we don't want one new structure to come in and wipe out that program. So if there's not an interest, there's not an interest, but I did want to bring it up because to me, it is a unique situation, and if the business is going to relocate to stay here, I'm in favor of us asking staff to take a look at, is there some type of program on a one-off basis with the condition that they don't leave the city of Oldsmar under a matching kind of scenario, like we somewhat mirror the program we have today. I don't know that the general fund has the revenues to go up to a $5,000 mark, but is there any appetite, is my question.
Is your reasoning because they're in city-owned leases and we're asked, we're going to be tearing the building down and we're asking, so kind of because they're in a city-owned building, that's why you're.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they don't have an option but to move, right? I mean, and we're the landlord, but if they're not staying within the city, then I don't feel it would be appropriate at all to use any taxpayer money,
No, obviously.
Right. So what you're basically, Mayor, what you're basically saying is you don't want these businesses to leave, you want them to stay. And you are looking for city staff to come up with a funding plan, maybe not $5,000, maybe $2,500 matching fund to convince them or help them stay in our city. But it's not
I'm
in the
looking, this
CRA.
would be an agenda item that would require a vote, I would assume, versus a consensus. I don't want to go any further with it if there's not any interest in it, is my point.
I guess my only thought is if they potentially, I think it depends on if they relocate, if they rent, or they buy a property or space as well, because as a renter, there may be some limitations on even how they can improve the property. So maybe essentially they're not even the ones that would really apply for a grant or be sort of direct recipients of the grant. I guess it would sort of depend on.
The typical process from going into a new space is you're expected to do the renovation in it. You do all the leasehold improvements. You might be able to negotiate some incentives with the landlord. Just speaking from experience, that's the norm.
Okay.
So I don't, So, yes, do you have any interest to look at a program, or do you think it is not?
I'm curious as to staff analysis, but I'm quite wary of creating a special appropriation for a special scenario. I sympathize with their situation, but at the same time, I feel like there's nothing that's occurred that hasn't been known for a decade, had the possibility of occurring. I worry about other businesses expecting the same. Not
So you're
that
a
there's
no.
other businesses whose building we're tearing down.
So you're a no.
It makes me,
I mean, it's okay.
yeah, it makes me a little bit nervous. It makes me feel like the city's gonna be held hostage by other businesses potentially threatening to leave, and then to keep them, we'll find money in the general fund to help you out, to convince you to stay. I think it's a better idea to work on our tax incentive plan, which the voters, voted yes, overwhelmingly so on a referendum, to get new businesses to come. I get really nervous about creating an unsustainable precedent with special cases.
Okay.
That's my
Vice Mayor?
knee-jerk reaction.
I mean, I'm in support, obviously, of retaining businesses, especially if they're sort of in a situation where it's city-owned now and they don't have another place. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to staff looking into potentially a grant, and just at least getting some information on it before we
enough.
make a decision, so.
Councilmember Norris.
I actually feel the same way that both of those young ladies down there feel. I don't agree, I worry about setting a precedent because, only the businesses in the CRA, only the houses in the CRA, but I don't want to lose businesses. So having staff analyze it, that's not going to cost us much, right?
Cost
To get
us their
staff
time, though.
analysis.
I think their time's probably expected to be used for things like that.
Yeah, so I would be in favor of a staff analysis.
Councilmember Saraki.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to pass.
Okay. All right, well, I'm going to ask that they take a look at it. Let me tell you the reason why. I don't view it as it's a precedent. It's unprecedented, quite frankly. I can never in my entire time on council recall of when we acquired a building that we tore down that had businesses in it. And my only goal is to say, if we're going to spend money, especially if we're creating these other programs that are much more substantial outside of the CRA even, to me, there's no difference of trying. We know for certain they have to leave, right? And so to me, it's like attracting another business, quite honestly. And I don't believe that it's something that would be precedent. So in any event, I'm going to go with the consensus. And so we'll see what we come up with. And if there's nothing to come up with that's reasonable, then we won't. But, these are the kind of things that you look at. All right, so the next item that I have is I'm going to give you, I had mentioned that I would go and Chip and Felicia and myself went and we looked out at the range. And we went and looked at the horse trails at the Booker Creek Preserve. And so I felt like we were out in the range.
Oh, you were calling it that. I was like, where did I
All right, so I just wanted to give you we went out and looked just to see what was there. There's a lot of similarities in the sense that they are a preserve. It's publicly owned land. It's owned by the county. We own, the county owns part of the preserve over here at, where we're partners with them and our preserve. So, we were concerned when we've talked about horse trails in the past. There's a multitude of concerns, but one of them, of course, was the expense part of going and setting up and having, the need for water, the need for facilities and parking and infrastructure, for lack of a better word. And what we found when we went and looked at probably the most similar situation over at Booker Creek, they have essentially two trails over there. One is what they call the exercise trail, and this would be the entrance to the exercise trail right here. And it's a 3.9 mile trail. It takes about an hour, according to them, to ride it. We did not ride it. But that is the infrastructure that they've invested right there, just to give you some perspective, right? Oop, what was this thing? It is interesting to note that the trails are not open to hikers, bikers, dogs. It's strictly,
Yeah, Katie was worried about that.
it's strictly open for horses, is the way they've done it. And they did something interesting, you know, it must be the way I'm doing this. All right, so the South Trail would be the exercise trail, is that correct? Yes, that was the exercise trail. So this is the exercise trail. If you look to the right, it's a dirt road. Now, we were looking at the soil and what kind of work was done there. We don't believe that there was any kind of special soil brought in to support it. We also thought that it was a scenario in which it would probably require to be bush hog on an ongoing basis, based on kind of what they have over there. They do something interesting. Their exercise trail, although they don't say it, here's what their exercise trail is, right? Their exercise trail is for locals. There's no parking. It should get there by horse. They have a horse community that's right in proximity. What they actually did was they must have gotten a easement from a couple of landlords, or property owners rather, where they put this narrow trail that connected one street to the other street through, at one point must have been private property, to get over to where the actual Scenic Trail entrance is, right? And we went over and talked to a young man who was out there working in the stables, you know, and asked him, how much is it used over there? And he said, oh yeah, people come through here all day. We were kind of surprised because it was pretty muddy and it was about 8 feet wide. Is that right? It's about 8 feet wide and the fence was like 4 feet, something like that. So it wasn't a very big entrance, but that was their way of including locals to be able to use the trail by making a pass-through so they're not going around on the street. Sure. They got the neighbors there to agree to it. They obviously were all horse people and what have you. Try this one more time. Oh, there's the entrance. Yeah, that's the entrance to this. That's the Scenic Trail. That's the large trail. And they did have on the Scenic Trail, the one I was talking about a moment ago, the smaller trail was the exercise trail for more local, although I'm sure locals ride here. This did have some parking, but both cases had no running water. All the material tells you that you're expected to bring your own water. You're expected to clean up after yourself. There's no facilities. It's just a spot where you could park essentially a trailer. Was that it? I think that's the last one. So anyhow, I just wanted to show it to you because I said that we would go out and look. Yeah. And instead of trying to do a field trip to go look and, you know. And so what would be my intent as it was, we talked about originally, is to come back with some possible options for here in the city, for us to look at it as a council. I will tell you, they're gonna look a lot like what you just saw. Not much to them. And see what there's some opportunities for parking, maybe with Tico and some of the, under their power lines, who knows? So,
Sounds good.
I'll go with that.
I love this idea. Yeah.
Just
Thank
kinda-
you for going out and doing that and taking pictures.
You're welcome. And I think Chip was the photographer out there taking the pictures. And we were navigating out there. I think that's really all I got. I think that's what I want to go into. I did have one other item then. It was a question that I had for staff. And that is, we have for years had the issue of no dogs in the park. Now, I have to tell you something. We're like one of the only cities
I know.
in Pinellas County that has that policy.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Dogs, so. Really?
That's, you know, and so I guess the question I would have, do we know whether that's an administrative policy or an ordinance
More than likely, it's an ordinance, and we can check real quick if you want.
It's an ordinance. We looked at it on the Leisure Services Advisory Board. Chip could probably give you a quick rundown. I didn't mean to voluntold you.
Call
I didn't want to voluntold you, but I know that you have.
Or you can do it.
Yeah, we did talk about that at the Leisure Service Advisory Board, and it is a city ordinance. However, there is some leeway in there for the Leisure Services Director to designate certain areas as open to dogs.
Part of the ordinance?
Yes.
Why you?
By changing the sign.
Why? Because that was done when Lynn was here. Does anybody doubt that? So, all right. Well, I guess my question to this council is, and certainly we could probably, if there is an appetite to go look at this. And let me first ask that, do we need to ban dogs from the parks?
No,
No,
I mean,
as long as they clean up after themselves.
just need to provide the bags.
That baggies.
Like every neighborhood does.
Yeah.
okay.
Bag and can
Hey,
setup.
you know, Mayor,
Yeah.
I'll just tell you something. I ride my bike through Sheffield Park all the time, daily. There are tons of dogs in that park, and they have the pickup bags and people clean up.
Yeah, yeah. I think this is an older, I'd like to call on our city attorney for just some input.
So what I'm concerned about is allowing all dogs in all places. There are small dogs that should be with small dogs and should not be with large dogs. There are areas where you don't want dogs, such as tight-knit playgrounds where minors or small children are, that their mom and dad may be 50 feet off and there's dogs rushing through. There's definitely liability issues there. The way that the ordinance is set up right now, it gives that control, whether it's to Chip or, the city manager, to control those areas where you don't want them. And frankly, he can say, have them all areas, but if we know that it gets out of hand, we don't have to change our ordinance. He can just remove the signs and close off an area. But, I am very concerned liability-wise that you have a free range of animals and you have no real control other than the owner saying, yeah, I'll keep them on a leash.
Okay.
And so I would think that we would want at least Chip and his professional staff to take a look at, whether they should be allowed in all areas. But I'm concerned liability-wise that they be in all areas.
Okay, fair enough. So here's what I'm going to suggest we do, with all due respect, right? I kind of feel as if there's probably some examples out there of where maybe there are cities that allow dogs in all their parks except for playground. I mean, maybe that's the case.
And beaches.
Or in their beaches, whatever. But if it's the consensus of this council to say we should allow dogs in the parks, then I would say it's time for our leisure services director to get busy and look at that, since he has the authority to do it. And I knew that was the case, but I've always felt like it's not fair to put it off on him unless this council indicates that there's some support for that to go look at. So that's not a directive, but that's a good idea, city manager.
Mayor, I have a question.
Yeah.
So we would exclude the playground areas with the kids, so
It's up to leisure
not all dogs in all parks.
Yeah, what I would
Okay.
suggest is that, we're leaving it up to our leisure services director, and we'd ask them to come back and let us know if they
Okay.
have some changes
Yeah,
that
okay,
they
thank you.
propose, knowing how the council feels. And just let's leave it at that. But it's kind of time, right?
Well, Mayor, Tom did bring up a good point, because I did have my grandsons at the Ariels Park at the playground. That would not be a good place for dogs, because there was kids all running all over the place.
Or during like special events, like.
Right.
Well, and
Yeah.
I would just say, I understand what you're saying. I would think that the leisure services director would probably look and see what some other people do and what they do effectively, and let that be the guiding light versus the opinions. I can't even tell you how many public events where there's dogs on leashes there, right? Has it been a problem? I've never been bitten, but, clearly I don't run fast. So, in any event, all right. That's all I got. The chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes, meeting adjourned.